Today we are going to take our third chapter, Chemical Messages for Homeostasis. In this chapter, we are going to study about the different endocrine glands and the hormones produced by each gland. Endocrine system, you know that we have studied about digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system. Likewise, one of the most important systems present in our body is the endocrine system. Endocrine system helps in control and coordinating various cellular activities. Okay, endocrine system consists of endocrine glands and the hormones produced by the endocrine glands. And what do you mean by hormones? I think you have studied in 9th standard, but once more I will tell you, hormones are the chemical secretions produced by the endocrine glands. And these endocrine glands are ductless glands. So the hormones produced by the endocrine glands are transported to each cell with the help of blood, through the blood. Then hormones are the chemical messengers that control the activities of the various cellular activities So each endocrine gland produces various hormones, and that various hormones has various function. And another thing is, when this endocrine glands produce hormones are transported through the blood, it will not bind all the cells. Each hormone binds each cell which is having a specific receptor to bind that hormone. So each hormone is bind to a specific cell which consists of a specific receptor. And when the hormone binds with that receptor, that forms a hormone receptor complex. So hormones will be bind to a specific receptor that is present in a specific cell. So each hormone is having a specific target cell. Target cell means on the cell which the hormone is binding on the receptor. So each cell consists of a receptor. On that receptor, that it is a specific receptor. What do you mean by specific? That particular hormone only bind on that receptor. So each cell consists of a specific receptor. On that receptor, that particular hormone is binded, and a hormone receptor complex is formed. Okay, and the cell on which the hormone is bound is called as the target cell. Then we are going to study about the pancreas. Pancreas is an endocrine gland. Okay, you can see here pancreas. Pancreas is an endocrine gland. Pancreas consists of the specialized cell known as islets of Langerhans. Okay, so pancreas consists of a specialized cell known as islets of Langerhans. And this islets of Langerhans consist of two types of cells present in that is alpha cell and beta cell. So once more I will tell you, pancreas is an endocrine gland. Pancreas consists of specialized cell known as islets of Langerhans, and this islets of Langerhans consist of two types of cell, alpha cell and beta cell. Alpha cell produces the hormone glucagon, and beta cell produce the hormone insulin. So specialized cells present in pancreas produces two types of hormones. Alpha cell produces the hormone glucagon, and beta cell produces the hormone insulin. Okay, so when the amount of glucose in the blood increases, so after digestion we all know that the nutrients are absorbed into the blood. So when the amount of glucose after digestion, when the amount of glucose in the blood increases, that is regulated with the help of the hormone insulin. At that time, our body produces insulin. And the insulin converts that glucose into glycogen, and it is stored in the liver and muscles. And when this amount of glucose is less in the blood, at that time, glucagon, the hormone glucagon is produced, and that glucagon will convert the stored glycogen in the liver. That is, glycogen is converted into glucose for various cellular activities. Okay, so now, so that function of insulin and glucagon is antagonistic. That is opposite to each other. That is when glucose level is more in the blood, insulin is produced. When glucose level is less in the blood, glucagon is produced. And glucose is converted into glycogen with the help of insulin. And that glycogen is converted into glucose with the help of glucagon. Okay, then now we can see the various functions of insulin and the glucagon. Various functions of insulin and the glucagon. Now we can see in the. So insulin, the function of insulin is cellular uptake of glucose molecules. Insulin helps in the cellular uptake of glucose molecules. Then convert glucose into glycogen in the liver and muscles. We have already told that. Convert glucose into glycogen in the liver and the muscles. So these are the two main functions performed by the hormone insulin. That is, it helps in the cellular uptake of glucose molecules and also converts glucose into glycogen in the liver, in the liver and the muscles. Then glucagon. What is the function of glucagon? Glucagon converts the glycogen stored in the liver to glucose. So again, if the amount of glucose in the blood is less, what happens? The glucagon hormone is produced and it will convert the glycogen into glucose. Then another function of glucagon is synthesizes glucose from amino acids. You all know that amino acid is the basic unit of protein. So this glucose, if the body needed glucose, at that time glucagon will convert our amino acid into glucose. So two processes glucagon is doing, that is, one is glycogen is converted into glucose, another thing is amino acid is converted into glucose. Understood? So these are the functions of insulin and glucagon. Understood? So insulin helps in the cellular uptake of glucose and the insulin convert the glucose into glycogen, and the hormone glucagon helps in the production of converting the glycogen to glucose, and also what glucagon synthesizes glucose from the amino acid. What is amino acid? Amino acid is the basic unit of protein. That means amino acids unite together to form the protein. So single unit or basic unit of protein is amino acid. So glucose is synthesized from the amino acid with the help of the hormone glucagon. And another thing is, it's the most common disease you are hearing in our day-to-day life is diabetes, and it is a lifestyle disease. So how this diabetes is occurring, and what is the normal level of glucose in our blood? Okay, so the normal level of glucose in our blood is 70 to 110 mg per in our blood. The normal level of glucose is 70 to 110 mg per ml per liter of blood. 100 milliliter of blood. Then which condition is called diabetic? And then the production of insulin is decreased due to any destruction in the beta cells. I have already told you, beta cells produces insulin. So if any problem occurs for the beta cells, so if the destruction of beta cells occurs, what happens? Insulin production also decreases. Or another reason is the cell is unable to intake the cell is unable to utilize the insulin produced. So if that condition exists, also what happens? And the glucose, the amount of glucose in the blood increases. Normally, our urine does not consist of glucose, but if the level of glucose in the blood increases, that glucose is expelled out urination also. And another thing is that if the amount of glucose in our blood before our breakfast, if it is more than 126 mg per 100 ml, that person is diabetic. Is it clear for you? Once more I will tell you, if the amount of glucose in our blood is before breakfast, if it is above 126 mg per 100 ml, that person is diabetic. And for a diabetic person, the symptoms is increased hunger, thirst, increased thirst will be there, and frequent urination. Frequent urination will also be there for a diabetic patient. These are the symptoms of the diabetes. So, normal amount of glucose is 70 to 110 mg per 100 ml. And if a person is diabetic before the breakfast, the amount of glucose present in the blood will be more than 126 mg per 100 ml. And that person will be having increased thirst and frequent urination will also be there. These are the symptoms of the diabetes. And next is the next gland, endocrine gland. So we have studied about pancreas, endocrine gland, pancreas. It produces two hormones, that is insulin and glucagon. What are the functions of insulin and glucagon? We have got. Next endocrine gland we are going to study about is the thyroid. So thyroid helps in our regulation of metabolism. Catabolism and anabolism together constitute the metabolism. Catabolism and anabolism means breaking down and building up process. That is catabolism and anabolism. These two processes together constitute the metabolism. This regulation of metabolism is done by the gland thyroid. Okay, so thyroid regulates the process of metabolism. And thyroid produces two hormones, that is thyroxine and calcitonin. And so thyroid produces two hormones, namely thyroxine and calcitonin. What is the function of thyroxine? We can go through what is the function of thyroxine. Thyroxine helps in the regulation of growth in the children. Thyroxine helps in the regulation of growth in the children. Then another thing is thyroxine increases the rate of metabolism. Thyroxine increases the rate of energy production. Thyroxine helps in regulating the growth of brain during the fetal and initial stage. Fetal stage means when the baby is in the mother's womb. That is the fetal stage. So when the baby is in the mother's womb, at that time and when it is born, at that infancy stage, both stage, the development of the brain is controlled with the help of the hormone thyroxine. Okay, so once more I will tell you what are the functions of thyroxine. Thyroxine helps in regulation of growth in children. Thyroxine helps in the increases the metabolic rate. Thyroxine increases the energy production. Thyroxine controls the growth of the brain in fetal and the infancy stage. These are the functions of the thyroxine. So what happens if the amount of thyroxine is produced less in our body? And thyroxine should be produced into a particular amount. If that amount is not produced in our body, what happens? That results in a diseased condition called hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism is the diseased condition in which the amount of hormone thyroxine is produced in less amount. Okay, hypothyroidism. And what are the symptoms of hypothyroidism? And another thing is hypothyroidism. If the amount of thyroid produced in the fetal and infancy stage, that will retard or hinder the development of physical and mental development of that baby. Okay, then if it, and that condition is known as criticism. So if the amount of thyroxine production is less during that fetal stage, it will hinder the physical and mental development of the that fetus or the infant, and that condition is called criticism. And prolonged deficiency of thyroxine in the adult that result in the disease that result in the condition known as myxoedema. Okay, so prolonged deficiency of thyroxine and in the adult that result in the myxoedema, condition called myxoedema. And in infant and fetal stage it is called as the criticism, and in adult it is called as the myxoedema. These are the two disease condition that is coming under the hypothyroidism. And what are the symptoms of hypothyroidism? Increased weight. Okay, so the body weight will be increased and less metabolic rate. Metabolism will be decreased. Hypertension. Hypertension increases. Pressure variation will be there. So So hypertension, the sluggishness, all these, and inflammation in the tissues. All these are the symptoms of hypothyroidism. So increased body weight, less metabolic rate, hypertension, sluggishness, inflammation in the tissues are the symptoms of the hypothyroidism. Then next condition is the hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism is the condition in which the amount of thyroxine produced is small. If the amount of thyroxine produced is small, that will accelerate the functions done by the thyroxine. That will affect the functions done by the thyroxine. Now, so in that condition, what happens? The body weight is low body weight. So the body weight will be decreased, and what happens? Temperature increased, sweating increased, heartbeat increases. When the heartbeat increases, and it results in an emotional imbalance also. All these are the symptoms of a hyperthyroidism. So the hyperthyroidism, what happens? The amount of thyroxine produced will be increased. In that condition, what happens? It will affect all the functions done by the thyroxine hormone, and the symptoms of that hyperthyroidism is less body weight. In the case of hypothyroidism, but body weight is increased. Just opposite to that. In the case of hyperthyroidism, what happens? Less body weight, then increases sweating, increases our body temperature, metabolism increases, body weight less, increases sweating, increases the heartbeat. All these things will be increased. And what happens? Our emotional imbalance. There occurs an emotional imbalance. All these are the symptoms of hyperthyroidism. Okay, so two types of thyroidism. When thyroid hormone is produced less in amount, is called hypothyroidism. When it is produced in excess, it is called as hyperthyroidism. These are the two disease conditions. And another disease condition is the goiter. Okay, goiter is a disease condition. That means iodine is necessary for the production of thyroxine hormone. So in the absence of iodine, what happens if the thyroid gland try to produce thyroxine, more amount of excess amount of thyroxine in the absence of iodine, if the thyroxine is produced by the thyroid gland try to produce thyroxine, the thyroid gland enlarges. Okay, that condition is called as goiter. So iodine is, once more I will tell you, iodine is needed for the production of thyroxine. So in the absence of iodine, if the thyroid gland try to produce thyroxine, that results in the enlarging of a thyroid gland, and that condition is called as the goiter. Okay, so it's a diseased condition. Then next, our next gland, endocrine gland, is the thymus gland. Thymus gland produces the hormone thymosin. It is also known as youth hormone. Thymus gland is present behind the sternum, and it is very active during the earlier stages, infancy stage and earlier stages. And when it reaches the maturity of puberty, this thymus gland constrict, and thymosin production will be stopped. So it's a youth hormone. It's active during the infancy, thymosin. The thymosin is known as the youth hormone. And the function of the thymosin is it helps in the maturity of the T lymphocyte. What is T lymphocyte? You will study later. Lymphocytes are the white blood cells. So thymosin helps in the maturity of the T lymphocyte, and the T lymphocyte provides immunity for us. So thymosin is the youth hormone. It is produced by the thymus gland. The thymus gland is situated behind the sternum. It is active during the infancy, and it constricts when we reaches the puberty or maturity. When we reaches the maturity, thymosin gland will be constricted. So it's known as the youth hormone. Then next is the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is present on the kidney. Now we can see which are the hormones produced by the adrenal gland. Sorry, before that, another is parathyroid gland. We have told about the thyroid gland produces two hormones, that is thyroxine and calcitonin. So calcitonin function and parath hormone function are antagonistic. So what is parath hormone? Parath hormone is the hormone produced by the parathyroid gland. So behind the thyroid gland, parathyroid gland is present, and it produces the hormone parath hormone. Okay, so that parath hormone produces the hormone calcitonin, and the hormone produces, so not calcitonin, parath hormone is produced by the parathyroid gland, and the thyroid gland produces the hormone calcitonin. Calcitonin and parath hormone function as antagonistic. That is, as we have told about the insulin and the glucagon, likewise here about the calcium. When the level of calcium in the blood increases, the normal level of calcium is 9 to 11 milligram per 100 ml. So when the level of calcium in the blood increases more than 11 milligram, what happens? Thyroid gland produces hormone calcitonin. We have studied that thyroid gland produces two hormones, that is thyroxine and calcitonin. So when the level of the calcium in the blood increases, thyroid gland produces the hormone calcitonin, and it prevents the process of mixing of calcium from the bones to blood, and also stores the excess calcium from blood to bones. Okay, so when the level of calcium in the blood increases, normal level of calcium is 9 to 11 mg per 100 ml. When the level of calcium in the blood increases, thyroid gland secrete the hormone calcitonin, and it prevents the process of mixing of calcium from bone to blood, and also store the calcium from the blood to bones. And I have told you, behind the thyroid gland, what is present? The parathyroid gland is present. Parathyroid gland produces the hormone parath hormone. When the level of calcium in the blood decreases, parathyroid gland produces the parath hormone. Parath hormone reabsorbs calcium from the kidneys to blood. Then it also prevents the storage of calcium in bones. So that's why the function of calcitonin and parath hormone is known as the antagonistic, that is opposite to each other. When the amount of calcium in blood increases, thyroid gland produces calcitonin, and when the amount of calcium in the blood decreases, parathyroid gland produces parath hormone. Okay, these are the hormones produced by the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. So now we have gone through hormones produced by the endocrine glands, pancreas, then which are the thyroid, parathyroid, and the thymus. About these glands we have discussed. Another gland is the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is present on the kidney. Now we can see which are the hormones produced by the adrenal gland. Here you can see the outer part of the adrenal gland. It's known as the cortex, and the inner part called as the medulla. That's why outer cortex and inner medulla given there. Outer cortex produces three hormones, that is cortisol, and aldosterone, and sex hormones. Cortisol, the synthesis of glucose from protein and fat. So cortisol hormone helps in the synthesis of glucose from the fat and protein. Then slows down the action of defense cells, controls inflammation and allergy. These are the functions done by cortisol. The next hormone is aldosterone. Maintains the salt water level by acting in kidneys. Then maintains blood pressure. Then sex hormones controls the development and functions of sex organs. And these are the functions of three hormones: cortisol, aldosterone, and sex hormones. These three hormones are produced by the outer cortex. Next is the inner medulla produces two hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine is also known as adrenaline. It acts along with the sympathetic nervous system. During emergency conditions, sympathetic nervous system is activated. So it acts, this epinephrine or adrenaline act along with the sympathetic nervous system. Thus, we can resist or withdraw ourselves from such situations in the emergency situation. Okay. Then norepinephrine or noradrenaline acts along with the epinephrine. So norepinephrine or noradrenaline also acts along with the epinephrine. So these are the hormones produced by the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland, outer surface, outer cortex and inner medulla. Then another important gland is the pineal gland. The pineal gland is situated in the center of the brain and it produces hormone called melatonin. Pineal gland is also known as the biological clock because when production of melatonin increases, we feel sleepy, and when the production of melatonin decreases, we are waking up. So in the night time, the production of melatonin increases, and in the daytime, production of melatonin will be less. So melatonin is known as, it's regulate our life activities, that is sleeping and waking up. So it's known as the biological clock. Okay, so these are the endocrine glands and the hormones produced by the endocrine glands. So pancreas produces two hormones, thyroxine and calcitonin, and the next hormone is the which parathyroid gland produces parathormone. Then which hormone? Thyroid gland produces two hormones, that is which are the hormones produced by the thyroid gland, that is thyroxine and calcitonin. Pancreas produces insulin and glucagon. Then thyroid gland produces which are the hormones produced by thyroxine and calcitonin. Then our adrenal gland produces, inner cortex and medulla produces different types of hormones. Then thymosin is the hormone produced by the thymus gland. Then last is the pineal gland produces the melatonin hormone. I think all of you understood which are the hormones produced by each gland. If you are having any doubt, we can clear through the WhatsApp.